If one day you discovered a truth about the child you once took pride in, kneeling before an older woman just to trade for money and power, what would you do? I am Margaret Wilson. I never thought I would have to tell this story, but I saw it with my own eyes. My son, Daniel, once a devoted husband, a gentle father, now turned into a stranger. My son lied. He abandoned his wife and children, all just to chase after the sweet words of a powerful woman. And when the truth finally came out, it made me shiver, because Daniel was never special in her eyes. He was nothing more than a cheap toy, a pawn in her game of lust and power. That rainy night, I saw the look in my son's eyes, shattered, empty, like a man who had just lost his soul. The only question that remained was, would he have the courage to come back, or would he let this family drown forever in the shadows?
If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd be so happy to connect with you.
That Saturday night, the small kitchen was lit, the smell of roasted chicken filling the house, blending with the sweet scent of apple and cinnamon. It was the kind of evening that made me sit down in my chair and think to myself, maybe happiness is really just these simple things. Emily, my daughter-in-law, stood by the stove, her hands moving quickly as she spread butter on freshly baked bread. She was only 32, had just given birth to Anna a year ago, yet still carried the same gentle grace. That night, she wanted to make honey-glazed chicken, Daniel's favorite. Daniel walked in, holding little Anna in his arms. The baby chirped and laughed, clutching at his collar, while Daniel strolled around humming in a deep, playful voice, looking at his broad shoulders. I couldn't help but remember the little boy who once stayed up late over his schoolbooks, trying to prove to me, "Mom, I can do it. Anna, come on. Just one more spoonful," Daniel said, bringing the spoonful of carrot porridge closer. Of course, Anna was never as obedient as adults hoped. She turned her face away, and the spoon left a streak of orange right across Daniel's white shirt. "Oh my," Emily laughed, shaking her head. "If you keep letting her do this, you'll have nothing left to wear to work." Daniel only chuckled, kissing his daughter on the cheek. "It's fine. Every stain is a painting. My daughter is a little artist." His laughter spread through the room. That sound filled me with a strange peace. After all the years of being widowed, I only wished for my son to grow up and build a real home. Watching this scene, I felt life's circle had closed in some way. I had raised him into a man, and now he had his own family to love and protect. But as a mother, no matter your age, worry never ends. Even though Daniel was now 35, tall and strong, in my eyes he was still the little boy who once ran home with scraped knees, crying, "Mom, it hurts." That boy was still somewhere inside the man sitting before me. We gathered around the table. I poured iced tea. Emily placed the roasted chicken in the center. Daniel carefully cut it into pieces. Anna sat in her high chair, banging the tray as if demanding, "Feed me first." We all found it amusing. During dinner, we only talked about everyday things. The neighbor's new dog barking endlessly, the upcoming fall fair in town, or a funny story Emily had read online. Daniel listened quietly, adding a few words here and there, but his eyes never left his little girl. I placed my hand on his calloused one. "Daniel, let me remind you of this," I said slowly. "Happiness doesn't just happen on its own. It has to be built, little by little, day by day. Never take it for granted." He gave my hand a gentle squeeze and nodded. "I know, Mom, I'll never take it lightly. After dinner, Daniel carried Anna upstairs. Emily cleaned up, and I sat in the living room, listening to the familiar sounds. The dishwasher running, the baby babbling in her room, the floor creaking as Daniel walked back down. Then suddenly, ting, the sound of a phone alert came from the kitchen counter. Daniel walked over and checked, just for a second, but I clearly saw his face tense up. He quickly shoved the phone into his pocket. Something wrong, son? I asked calmly. He replied quickly, No, Mom, just a work email. Working on a Saturday night. I raised an eyebrow. He smiled, that half-joking, half-dodging smile he had used since childhood. You know, Mom, work never really stops anymore. I didn't press further, but inside I felt uneasy, afraid that work pressure was weighing too heavily on him. Later, when the house was quiet, Anna asleep, Emily reading in bed, Daniel reviewing some documents in the corner, the phone rang again. This time, it was a call. The ringtone echoed sharply through the still house. Daniel picked it up, lowered his voice. Yes, I'll be there early Monday. Emily looked up. Who was that? Daniel hesitated for a moment before answering. Just the office. The new boss wants to meet everyone at the start of the week. I watched his face and heard his calm tone, but his eyes told a different story. In them was something unusual, part eagerness, part tension that I had never seen before. That peaceful night, as we cleared the dishes and turned off the lights, I could not have known that call was the first knock of a storm about to crash into my son's life. As a mother, I had watched my son overcome many challenges in life, from the days he nearly drowned while learning to swim, to the stressful college entrance exams, to the difficult early years of building his career. But perhaps never before had I seen Daniel struggle as much as during the time Emily quit her job after giving birth to Anna. Emily originally planned to take only a few months off to care for the baby, then return to her old company. But babies never follow plans. Anna was born a little premature, with weak health, often sick. So Emily kept delaying, until finally, she stayed home full-time. At first, Daniel said, "It's okay, Mom, I can handle it." I looked at his confident eyes, his broad shoulders, and nodded. Yes, he could carry it, but I knew the price would be heavy. Raising a child is never cheap. Formula, diapers, vitamins, insurance, doctor's visits. I had been a mother. I knew well that feeling of opening your wallet and watching money scatter like autumn leaves. Back then, I still had my husband by my side, but Daniel had to support his wife and child while also keeping up his image at work. I knew the weight of providing for his family was growing heavier each day. One evening, I came over and saw the kitchen table covered with bills, utilities, insurance, credit cards. Emily sat there, head in hands, looking defeated. Daniel was at his laptop, smoke practically rising from his head. "What's going on, dear?" I asked softly. Emily forced a smile. "It's just too many things all at once, Mom. I'm a little overwhelmed." Daniel quickly jumped in. "It's fine, Mom. I'll manage." I sat beside Emily, gently patting her hand. "Let me watch Anna a few times, dear. You need a break, or else you'll collapse." Emily's eyes welled up, as if she had just been waiting for someone to understand her. Ever since she married into our family, I always wanted her to feel this, that she was never alone. I knew how hard it was for a woman to leave her job, stay home caring for a baby. While her peers outside were climbing the ladder, as for Daniel, he was drowning in work. The company was restructuring, tightening KPIs, piling on targets. If you exceeded them, you got a bonus. If not, your benefits were cut. Daniel was often home late, sometimes only by 10 p.m., and many nights I saw him carrying his laptop into his room, working until midnight. Emily tried to encourage him. Just push a little longer, and things will be fine. But I knew those words were only a thin veil covering the loneliness in her heart. One evening, I watched Anna so Emily could go out for a short walk. When she returned, she sat beside me with a sigh. "Mom, Daniel seems tired all the time lately. I'm really worried." I looked at her and said slowly, "Men sometimes hide their weariness to appear strong. But Emily, don't forget even the strongest need a place to lean on. And you are that place." Emily nodded, her eyes red, but I saw determination flicker in them. In the weeks that followed, the house was still warm, but I began to notice small cracks. Daniel spoke less at dinner. His phone rang constantly. Once, I caught him sitting in his car, holding his phone, his face tense yet oddly eager. When I tapped on the window, he quickly put the phone away. "Just a work email, Mom." I didn't press, only nodded. But I remembered. Then one Sunday evening, just after we cleared the table, Daniel received an internal email. He opened it. His eyes flickered with surprise, then silence. "What is it, son?" I asked. He replied, "Oh, the company has a new branch director. Her name's Veronica Hayes. They say she's famous for being cold and extremely efficient." After that, he slipped the phone into his pocket with a smile. But I noticed a subtle change in his eyes, a mix of curiosity and anticipation. It was understandable, of course, meeting a new boss with such a reputation. Maybe he was just a little anxious. I didn't ask further, only reminded the two of them to stay strong and get through this difficult stage together. I had spent years watching my son work at the company, under different directors, some easygoing, some strict, but never had I seen Daniel come home with such a strange, glowing look in his eyes as the day he told me about his new boss. That morning, according to Daniel, the entire office felt like it was bracing for a storm. People whispered about that woman, Veronica Hayes, the newly appointed branch director. Rumor had it she was known for being cold, sharp, and had once turned a failing office into the region's top-performing branch. Some of the women employees were worried, hearing she was highly selective, ruthless in competition, unwilling to give anyone leeway. But many others, especially the men, seemed excited, perhaps imagining that a powerful female boss meant new opportunities to be noticed. Daniel sat in the middle row that day, gripping his pen tightly, eyes fixed on the screen. When Veronica walked in, he said it felt like a scene from a movie. A woman around 40, with neatly tied brown hair, a fitted blazer hugging her tall frame, walking with firm steps. She didn't need to laugh loudly, just the faintest smirk was enough to silence the entire room. Daniel said there was a moment when her gaze swept the crowd, then stopped on him longer than on anyone else. That single look made his heart skip. Her speech was short and direct. "I don't like slowness," she said, voice low and steady. "I want results, and I want people who can deliver them with me. If you're here just to keep following the old path, you'll be uncomfortable. But if you want to go further, I will clear the way." Right after the meeting, to everyone's surprise, Veronica openly praised the report Daniel had submitted the previous week. concise, with vision. I want you to take charge of the upcoming flagship project. Those sitting nearby looked at him with a mix of envy and curiosity. And Daniel, my son, who rarely showed emotion in public, only nodded and thanked her. But inside, he said, waves were crashing, even more unexpected, as everyone was leaving. Veronica walked straight to him. Daniel Wilson, right? I'd like to invite you for a cup of coffee. I believe we have much to discuss. Daniel hesitated. For an ordinary employee to be invited by the new director for coffee on the very first day, wasn't that a special signal? He told me. At that moment, his legs felt glued to the floor, both eager and nervous. But in the end, he nodded. The cafe they went to wasn't the familiar corner shop, but a sleek spot inside a high-rise where million-dollar contracts were signed, not where people gossiped. Veronica chose a table by the large window, ordered an espresso for herself and a latte for Daniel, as if she already knew his taste. You have leadership qualities, Daniel, Veronica began directly. Daniel smiled faintly. I just tried to do my job well, ma'am. Hard workers are plenty. Veronica shook her head. But those who can see further, take responsibility, that's rare. I see that in you. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. Do you want to go further? I'm not talking about a few years down the line. I'm talking about a real career where you command, make decisions, and earn respect. Daniel was silent for a long while, then nodded. Yes, I want to provide for my family, and I've always wanted to go further. Veronica smiled, pulled a small box from her bag, and set it on the table. Then start by looking like a leader. Here, a tie that suits a manager's image. Consider it a reward for your first step. Daniel stammered. I can't accept. Yes, you can. Veronica cut him off firmly. A leader must know how to accept what he deserves. He couldn't refuse anymore. He took the gift, awkward yet elated. Before leaving the table, Veronica paused, looked straight into his eyes, and said slowly, Daniel, I will give you my time. One-on-one mentoring sessions, after hours. But remember, success demands full devotion. Are you ready? And Daniel, almost reflexively, replied, Yes, I'm ready. That evening, Daniel brought the tie box home. Emily, who was preparing dinner, laughed when she saw it. Wow, such a nice boss. Giving personal gifts like this, she said lightly. Daniel scratched his head. Maybe she just wanted to encourage me. I sat at the table, watching quietly, saying nothing, just observing the small joy in my son's family. I saw the look in Daniel's eyes, the look of a man tasting, for the first time, what it felt like to be lifted up a rung. From that day, Daniel's schedule changed. He wasn't just busy with the new project. He also stayed late more often, with the reason being private mentoring with Veronica. Each session came with something, sometimes praise, sometimes encouragement, sometimes a small gift, like invisible threads, one by one, binding him tighter. Emily was glad, seeing her husband being recognized. As for me, I stayed silent, listening, remembering. In my heart, a faint unease stirred, not quite fear, hard to name, but perhaps a mother's intuition. It was just a blur then, not yet clear, but deep down, I knew. Those blurs would sharpen with time. From then on, Daniel sank deeper into his packed schedule and late-night mentoring with Veronica. He didn't yet realize that each meeting, each gift, Each lingering glance was another strand pulling him further away from the warm home he had. Emily hadn't noticed anything. She was simply happy that her husband was being valued, believing it was a good opportunity. I didn't want to worry her, so I kept watching silently. But inside, I wondered, were those private coffees, those little gifts, truly just recognition? The answer I knew only time would tell. From that fateful coffee meeting onward, I noticed Daniel's routine changed completely. My son had always been disciplined dinner at the same time. Evenings spent playing with his child or reading a few pages before bed. But lately, the clock ticked past 11:30, even midnight, before the sound of his car pulling in could be heard. When I asked, Daniel only gave a faint smile. The clients are tough, Mom. Sometimes they keep us negotiating until late. If I walk out, the deal falls apart. Emily believed him, her eyes full of sympathy. She would often say, "He works so hard to provide for the family. We just have to be patient, Mom." I looked at my daughter-in-law with such tenderness. She had only recently given birth, still pale and fragile. Yet she always found ways to defend her husband even when I knew she must have felt sadness inside. A few times, Daniel claimed he had to attend dinners with big clients. When I asked who with, his replies were vague. Some partners from New York. Mom, you wouldn't know them. What struck me was that there were never any receipts, never any stories about these supposed clients. Each time I brought it up, Daniel brushed it off. Nothing interesting, really. Just contract talk. Don't worry about it, Mom. Emily was too busy caring for Anna to notice the details. She usually ended her questions with a weak smile. He's capable, Mom. If the company trusts him with so much, it must be for a reason. But every time I heard the word client, in my mind, I saw Veronique's cold, piercing gaze. One night, Daniel came home even later than usual. He reeked faintly of alcohol, his steps unsteady. Emily rushed to support him, worried. "You drank too much, it's dangerous to drive like this." Daniel laughed it off, patting her shoulder. "Just a few glasses. It was an important guest. I couldn't refuse." But later, as we sat in the kitchen, Daniel let slip a sentence that made me take notice. "The boss said I'm reliable, different from the others. I guess I'm kind of proud of that." I didn't press further, but in my heart, I knew the boss he referred to could only be Veronica. When a powerful woman tells a man he is trustworthy, different from the rest, that's no longer just about work. Soon after, Daniel began weaving little excuses to explain his late returns. The client was difficult, it dragged on an extra hour. The car had a flat tire. I had to call for help. The office computer crashed. I had to stay back and fix it. Emily listened and nodded, never doubting him. To her, Daniel was always strong, honest. Watching that blind trust made my chest tighten, because even the smallest lies, however harmless, are like grains of sand in a wheel. Once they slip in, the wheel wears down bit by bit. One evening, I sat waiting in the living room when Daniel walked in. I caught a whiff of a strange scent, not Emily's laundry detergent, not office smoke. It was women's perfume, sharp and lingering, leaving a trace in the air. I asked bluntly, "Did you meet a female client?" Daniel froze slightly, then nodded. "Yes, she shook my hand when leaving, probably just rubbed off." "Mom, you're overthinking." I didn't respond. I just looked straight into his eyes. For a split second, They wavered before he quickly put on his usual confident expression. Emily spoke less these days. Many nights, while Daniel was still out, I'd see her sitting by the dinner table, staring at her cold rice bowl, absent-mindedly flipping a spoon in her hand. I would come over, place my hand gently on her shoulder. "He's only trying his best, dear." Sometimes men think they must sacrifice family time in exchange for success. But remember, happiness doesn't happen on its own, it has to be tended. Emily gave a faint smile, nodding. "I know, Mom. I just hope things settle soon, so Anna can have her father around more." Her words made my heart ache. One Sunday night, as I was closing the window before bed, Daniel's phone rang loudly. The chime of a Slack message echoed through the quiet house. I glanced and saw the screen light up a message from Veronica. "Don't sleep yet. I need you to review 3 slides right now." I pretended not to notice, walking slowly to my room. But my heart pounded hard. This was no longer ordinary work. That message was a tether, pulling Daniel out of this home and into a world neither Emily nor I could control. That weekend, I planned to take the whole family out for lunch, but Daniel said, "Sorry, Mom. The company has a weekend workshop. I have to go." Emily paused, holding baby Anna wriggling in her arms. "On the weekend? I thought companies usually avoid these days." Daniel pulled out a chair, sighing. "It's rare, but this is for the new project. They want all the managers there. If I don't go, I'll lose my chance." I sat across from him, lightly tapping my spoon against my teacup. "Son, let me ask you one thing. Is this workshop truly necessary, or just an excuse?" Daniel looked at me and smiled reassuringly. "Mom, don't overthink it. It's just work. Please take care of your health so I can focus." I nodded, but inside, a small crack I couldn't explain had already formed. The next afternoon, Daniel called. I picked up the phone and asked, "Have you arrived yet?" "Yes, Mom. A lakeside resort, very fancy. They said it's to create a creative environment for the managers." I could hear the wind on the other end, mixed with colleagues' laughter. "All right then, just remember to stay mindful. Work hard, but don't forget, you have a family at home." "I know, Mom," Daniel replied, his voice slightly evasive. Later, Daniel told me about a break during the workshop. He was checking his email when Veronica approached. "Daniel," her voice smooth as velvet. Daniel looked up, awkward. "Hello, Director." She didn't keep her distance but stepped closer, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You work so hard. A man like you is rare, very reliable." Daniel quickly stepped back, replying, "Thank you, ma'am. I just tried to do my job well." Veronica smirked faintly. "And modest, too. I like modest men, but in my eyes, you are much more than that." Daniel admitted to me that his heart raced at that moment. Part of him wanted to retreat, but another part felt his pride as a man being stroked. That evening, after the company dinner, Daniel returned to his room. The hallway carpet was soft under dim yellow lights. Suddenly, Veronica appeared, blocking his way. "Not heading back so soon? One more drink?" Daniel shook his head. "Thank you, Mum, but I'm tired." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You know, in this company, I only trust a few people, and you are one of them." Before Daniel could respond, she leaned in and pressed a kiss on his cheek. Daniel stepped back sharply, breath unsteady. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" Veronica smirked. "Don't be afraid of success, Daniel. Sometimes, to go further, you must dare to cross the small boundaries." Then she walked away, leaving Daniel standing stunned in the hallway. When he returned home, Daniel carried a small box. I saw him quickly hide it in a drawer. "Daniel," I called. He startled. "Yes, Mom? That box you just put away, what is it?" He hesitated, then opened it, revealing a shiny watch. A company gift. MOM. A limited edition watch for outstanding managers. I looked at it for a long while before saying, "Don't let gifts blind you to true worth. A watch may shine, but it's character that earns respect." Daniel smiled, putting it back in the drawer. "I'll remember that, Mom." But I knew, from that moment, a bond between Daniel and Veronica had been tied, a bond not easily cut. One evening, Emily held up a receipt from a fancy restaurant, frowning. "Daniel, what's this?" "I found it in your jacket." Daniel rushed to take it, forcing a smile. "Oh, a client dinner. The company paid for everything. Don't worry." Emily blinked, staring at him. "Then why didn't you mention it?" "I just thought it strange. The bill was so high." Daniel patted her shoulder. "You're overthinking. It's all for work." Emily fell silent, but I saw confusion flicker in her eyes. That night, after the whole house was asleep, Daniel's phone lit up. On the screen was a message. "Congratulations, new project manager. I've arranged a luxury suite for the upcoming business trip. Don't forget the tie I gave you last time." Daniel read it quickly, locked the screen, and sighed. Inside, his emotions were tangled, conflicted. The next morning, as Daniel was heading to work, I stopped him. "Daniel, I just need to ask once. Are you sure everything you're receiving is truly deserved?" He froze, then turned to me. "Mom, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm only working hard for the family." I sighed. "Working hard is good, but remember, not everything that glitters is gold. I just feel the company is showing you too much favor, and I don't have a good feeling about it." Daniel said nothing, only turned away. I noticed his shoulders tremble slightly. I knew then, my son was stepping into a gray zone, a place where right and wrong blur, and Veronique's cunning was drawing him deeper into a maze of temptation. That night, Daniel said he would be home late because of a project closing party. I was used to it by then, but uneasiness still lingered in my chest. Emily soothed little Anna to sleep, while I sat in the kitchen, restless for reasons I couldn't explain later. Daniel recounted the evening. The party was held at a 5-star hotel. Soft jazz playing, red wine swirling in crystal glasses. He had just completed a project assigned by Veronica and was met with applause. Colleagues raised their glasses. "Daniel, bottoms up. You're the company's rising star." Daniel laughed, drained his glass, his chest swelling with pride. In the haze of wine and golden lights, everything spun dreamlike, intoxicating. As the night wound down and people began leaving, Veronica approached him. "Daniel," she called softly, her hand brushing his arm. "Yes, Director." Daniel froze. She smiled. "Come with me. I have something to say in private." Daniel followed, the alcohol making his steps unsteady. They entered a luxurious suite, soft lights, heavy dark curtains. Veronica turned, drew the curtains, then faced him. her gaze burning. You've chosen the path of a leader, Daniel. Daniel faltered. You mean the project I just finished? Not just the project. Veronica moved closer. The path, a career, power, all of it. If you dare to cross the line. Daniel stepped back, but the sofa was right behind him. Veronica didn't rush. She leaned down, whispering, You're not like other men. You're strong, ambitious, and I need someone like you. Then she set her glass down and pressed her lips to his. Daniel told me his mind spun at that moment. Half of him wanted to break away. Half was swept up in the wine, the praise, the eyes of power. And then he didn't pull away. That night, the final fragile line was crossed. Daniel woke with a pounding head. Beside him, Veronica sat cross-legged, sipping coffee, her eyes calm, as if nothing that happened mattered. You're awake? She asked lightly. Daniel sat up abruptly, fumbling for his shirt. Director. Last night. Veronica set down her cup, raising an eyebrow. Don't worry. We're both adults. Daniel fell silent, face flushed red. She stepped closer, resting a hand on his shoulder, her tone firm. From now on, you're mine, Daniel. In work and outside of it. He stammered. But I have a family. Veronica let out a soft laugh. Family can stay where it is. Work and success, that's what defines who you are. Daniel stood frozen, unable to respond. That noon, as Daniel left the hotel, his phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Honey, Anna has a fever. I need you. Daniel stared at the screen for a long time. But the haze of triumph, the thrill of conquest, and Veronique's promises still clouded his mind. He didn't reply. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and walked on. That evening, Daniel came home late. I sat waiting in the living room. When he walked in, I saw exhaustion on his face, but most of all eyes that refused to meet mine. Eyes that looked both guilty and evasive. Daniel, I called. Anna has had a fever all day. Emily was so worried. Why weren't you at the hospital with her? Daniel lowered his head, removing his wrinkled jacket. I was in a meeting. I'm sorry. I stared at his crumpled shirt, catching the faint trace of unfamiliar perfume. He avoided my eyes, hurrying upstairs. In that moment, I knew my son had crossed into dangerous territory, and the path ahead would not be easy to return from. Daniel had just made the greatest mistake of his life. Emily had sent a plea for help, but he had stayed silent. And I, as a mother, felt the first true stirrings of fear that this family's happiness was about to be swept into an uncontrollable storm. All that night, Anna had a high fever, her little face flushed red, her tiny hand trembling on Emily's arm. Emily and I took turns applying cool compresses, and we called a taxi to take her to the children's hospital. In the brightly lit emergency room, Emily held Anna, her eyes rimmed red with worry. I stood beside them, my heart burning. For 3 hours straight, Daniel did not show up. When the door finally opened, he walked in. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loosened, and a strange perfume lingered in the air. Emily looked up, her voice hoarse from crying. Where have you been? Anna's had a fever since the afternoon. Daniel panted, leaning against the doorframe. I was stuck in a meeting. I ran here as soon as I could. Emily fell silent, only clutching Anna tighter. I watched Daniel press a kiss to the child's forehead, awkward and unnatural, and it made my chest tighten in the days that followed. The warm atmosphere of the house grew cold. Daniel came home late more and more, always with a work excuse. Emily sat listlessly on the sofa, trying to trust her husband, but her sad eyes betrayed her worry. One evening, while I was clearing the dishes after dinner, an argument broke out in the living room. "You've changed, Daniel." Emily's voice trembled. "You're not the same anymore. You're short-tempered, absent. Do you still love me and the baby?" Daniel ran his hand through his hair. "Don't overthink it. I'm under a lot of pressure. The company is at a critical stage. I can't slack off." Emily bowed her head and tears fell, but she still tried to reassure herself. "I saw everything, but I kept silent, knowing that sometimes if I intervened, things might get worse." On another late night, after Emily had taken Anna upstairs, I stayed and sat with Daniel in the kitchen. We drank a glass of water. His face was tense. I looked at my son for a long time, then asked, "Daniel, is there something I need to know?" He startled and avoided my gaze. "No, Mom, it's just work." I was silent for a few seconds, then said, "You can deceive Emily, but don't forget I have lived more than half a life. I watched you grow up. I know when you're hiding things. If you're tired, tell me. I can help you." Daniel pressed his lips together, said nothing, and walked up to his room. His silhouette stretched along the stairs, tall and lonely. I sighed. A few days later, Daniel received a message from Veronica. I only happened to see it when he left his phone on the kitchen table to go out to the garage. The short line cut into my heart like a knife. "You deserve more. I will process your official promotion provided you devote 100% to me." I held the phone, my heart wrenching. Clearly, this was no longer just about work. That woman was setting Daniel in a trap that I knew if he kept going, our family would shatter. I put the phone back, pretending I had not seen it. Inside, my worry had grown into a storm brewing over our roof. I've met many kinds of people in my life, but someone like Veronica is rare. Without any introduction, the moment she enters a room, everyone turns to look. At 40, Veronica knows exactly what her advantages are: sharpness, an alluring appearance, and the ability to command men's eyes. With Daniel, I knew from the beginning that she didn't just see a capable employee. She saw a strong body, a face that left an impression, and above all, a younger man, one easily swayed by praise. Each small gift, each public compliment, each private coffee, Veronica baited him skillfully. I heard Daniel recount with a hint of pride he didn't even notice that Veronica saw him as different, a natural leader. For a man carrying the weight of financial burdens, yearning for recognition. Those words were nothing less than an addictive drug. One evening, Daniel came home late. When he removed his coat, I noticed him secretly slipping a small black box into a drawer. I didn't ask right away, but the next morning, while tidying his room, I glimpsed it, a limited edition watch. So expensive I knew he couldn't have bought it with his salary. That evening, I hinted softly, "Daniel, new watch. Looks nice." Daniel stiffened slightly, then replied quickly, "Oh, just a company reward, Mom." But I noticed the gleam in his eyes. It wasn't just joy at owning something nice. It was the look of someone who felt validated, valued by another. At dinner, he mentioned Veronica more often. "The new boss trusts me, Mom. She said I could rise quickly if I keep this up." Emily smiled, encouraging her husband. But having been a wife and mother myself, I sensed the unease hidden behind that smile. One night, Daniel said, I have a one-on-one mentoring session with the boss. I'll be home late. Emily answered, forcing calm. Go ahead, but come back for dinner. I made your favorite tonight. Daniel only nodded and left quickly. Later, from bits of what Daniel shared, I realized those mentoring sessions weren't what the company usually meant. They took place in luxurious bars, under dim golden lights and the soft sway of jazz. Veronica sipped red wine, her dark lips gleaming under the warm glow. Just the two of them at a table. Around them, faint jazz melodies, the clink of crystal glasses. She leaned back, head tilted, eyes fixed on Daniel. Do you know? Veronica spoke slowly, each word controlled like someone who owned the rhythm of conversation. There are very few people I find truly reliable in this field. Most just brag and shift blame. But you're different. Daniel fiddled with his glass, avoiding her direct gaze, and forced a laugh. Thank you, Mum. I'm just doing my best. Isn't that what everyone does? No. Veronica leaned forward, her voice low, secretive. Her manicured fingers glided across the table, stopping on the back of his hand. The gesture froze him. You're different. You're not just hardworking. You have it in you to go much further, if you want. Daniel tensed, half withdrawing his hand but then leaving it still, his eyes wandering elsewhere. Veronica smiled knowingly, as if she had predicted this very reaction. Have you ever wondered? She pressed on, her tone softer now, yet as sharp as a blade. Why I chose you for this project, not those with far more years of service. It's not luck, Daniel. It's because you have something they don't. Strength, honesty in your eyes. I see it. Daniel took a sip of wine to steady himself, whispering, I never thought I was that special. Veronica let out a light laugh, smooth enough to drown out the notes from the small stage nearby. Special or not, it's not about what you think. It's about what I see. And Daniel, I've never been wrong about people. Even imagining that scene made me shiver. With a cunning woman like Veronica, every look, every word was calculated to pull Daniel deeper into her trap. After those private meetings, I saw Daniel's demeanor shift. He walked straighter, his voice firmer, as though each step carried new authority. But at the same time, he grew distant. Even at the rare dinners he attended, he wasn't really present. He sat at the table, but his mind was elsewhere. Emily remained patient, still rising early to prepare Anna's bottles, still cooking his favorite meals, still waiting at the dinner table. But her eyes often drifted into emptiness, into the space where Daniel should have been smiling at his wife and child. One night, after Anna was asleep, Emily pulled a chair beside me in the kitchen. Mom, her voice barely audible, he's changed so much. It's not just work. Sometimes I feel like he's in another world, one I can't reach. I turned to look at her. Her hands were clasped tight, nails digging into her skin. The fear was vague yet so real it left me speechless. I grasped her hands firmly and said, Don't worry too quickly. Men can get swept up in work. What matters is that you and Anna are here. But I'll keep a closer eye on Daniel. Emily nodded, tears glimmering at the corners of her eyes, but forced a thin smile. I saw the emptiness in her, emptiness born not from a lack of love, but from the bond slowly unraveling. Inside me, fear grew. I looked at my son, the pride of my life, once disciplined and tender-hearted, now intoxicated by the illusion of victory. He believed he was the chosen one, destined for a brighter path. But that brilliance, I feared, was nothing but a mirage. And if he chased it too long, this family would one day break apart. I knew I shouldn't. But one time, when Daniel left his phone on the table, I saw Veronique's message. You truly surprised me. You make me believe you can climb to the very top with me. Followed by a heart emoji. I froze. This was no longer work. This was possession, emotional entanglement chains Veronica was wrapping around him. In the long nights, I often saw Daniel sitting alone on the porch, his gaze distant. Perhaps he was wrestling with himself. Yet whenever Emily came down to check on him, he would smile and offer harmless lies, just thinking about the project. Gradually, his words cut deeper, like knives. Maybe, if I weren't so tied down, my career would be different. He never said it aloud to anyone, but as his mother, I felt it clearly. One Sunday, I saw Daniel hiding a small, elegantly wrapped gift box in his drawer. I asked, "Is that for Emily?" Daniel startled, then forced a smile. "Yes, Mom. I was saving it for our anniversary." But I knew from his tone it wasn't true. The way he touched that box wasn't how a husband thinks of his wife, it was how a man hides something. I didn't need to open it to know. That gift wasn't for Emily. That night, when the whole house was asleep, I sat alone in the living room. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. I thought of the years gone by, of Emily, a gentle, devoted daughter-in-law, and of little Anna, barely a year old. Daniel, my son, was drowning in the illusion that Veronica loved him, that money and power could fill the space of happiness. And now, he was closer than ever to the edge of betrayal. That night, the rain never stopped, rattling on the porch roof. Daniel had told Emily he needed to go back to the office for a bit, some paperwork unfinished. I watched my son put on his coat, clutching a carefully wrapped paper bag I couldn't tell the contents of through the car window. It looked like there might be a bouquet inside. "You're going to work at this hour?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my eyes followed him. Daniel offered an awkward smile, avoiding my gaze. "Yes, just for a little while, Mom. Tomorrow will be easier." I said nothing more, but my heart ached. The 35-year-old man looked, in that embarrassed posture, more like a young man about to confess love than a husband and father. The company headquarters were dark, only a few corridors lit by security lights. Daniel hurried through puddles gleaming on the stone floor, holding the bouquet and the little box tight. His heart pounded, his breath quick. One thought ran through his head. I'll surprise Veronica. This time she'll understand that I'm sincere. He stopped before the director's office door. Light leaked from the slightly open crack. Daniel smiled, took a breath, straightened his tie, and was about to push the door. But before he could, he heard a soft laugh. A deep male voice sounded from inside. "You really know how to indulge a man, Veronica." Then Veronique's voice, the same honeyed voice Daniel had once found irresistible, spoke clearly into his ear. "You are the only one I trust. No one can replace you, not even those younger, more naive ones." The door was ajar just enough for Daniel to see Veronica in a black silk dress, wrapped around an older man with salt and pepper hair, clearly a successful businessman. They were laughing together, kissing passionately. Daniel froze. The bouquet in his hands trembled. The small gift box, the necklace he'd bought with his savings, suddenly felt like lead. He wanted to shout, to bargain, but his legs felt rooted to the floor. Veronica rested her head on the older man's shoulder and murmured the very words Daniel had heard 100 times. You know, you're the only one who makes me feel young and powerful. You're special. Daniel remembered those same lines had once been spoken to him in that hazy bar over red wine. Now they slid from her lips like an old tune sung for a new audience. Daniel's heart shattered. Veronica glanced up, and in the large mirror behind the desk she saw Daniel standing motionless by the door. A flicker of surprise passed in her eyes, but it lasted only a moment. She quickly composed herself. She quietly closed the door, bent down, and picked up her phone from the desk. A few seconds later, Daniel's phone buzzed. A short message lit the screen. Don't do anything foolish. Go back to your work. That was all. Cold, sharp as a blade. Daniel stood there, bouquet and gift box in hand, feeling as if the world beneath him had collapsed. Tears welled up, mixing with the rain soaking his coat. He stepped back a few paces, then like someone emptied of will bolted down the corridor. The neon lights cast a cold glare. His shadow stretched thin and trembling. Outside in the parking lot, the rain fell in heavy sheets. Daniel looked at the flowers, the bright red roses now mocking him. He squeezed them tight, then hurled them into a nearby trash bin. The gift box in his hand trembled like a hot coal. He slid into his car and rested his forehead on the steering wheel, unable to utter a single word. That night the rain fell without stopping, pattering against the porch roof. I sat in the living room, the yellow lamplight casting onto the thin curtain, listening to the rain beat on the window pane. The clock neared midnight and Daniel still hadn't come home. A nameless unease rose in me. Little did I know then that my son, the greatest pride of my life, was lost on a road slick with both rain and tears. Daniel drove like a man without a soul. The wipers swept back and forth, rain lashing the windshield, each bead tracing long lines like 1,000 scratches across his heart. The radio played, but he heard nothing. A sad country song came and faded as his trembling hand turned the knob. Inside the car there was only heavy breathing and the steady hammer of rain on the metal roof. He didn't know where he was going, had no direction, no goal. The road stretched, hazy under the downpour, like his life now. Disoriented, only darkness ahead. In his despair, Daniel pulled his wallet from his jacket pocket and opened it. A small photo of Emily holding baby Anna appeared. His wife's gentle smile, his daughter's clear eyes, each image felt like a knife in his chest. He whispered, voice choked, Emily. Anna, what have I done? Memories surged. Emily in her wedding dress, eyes shining as she took his hand down the aisle. Emily's laughter on weekend mornings when they were broke but happy. The first time he held his daughter in the hospital, feeling her tiny breath against his chest. Tears spilled, blurring the streetlights beyond the rain-streaked glass, lost and unfocused. Daniel's eyes were fixed on the photo while his car drifted into the opposite lane. Headlights from a truck flashed and a horn sliced through the rain. He jerked awake, grabbing the wheel in panic. His car veered to the shoulder, tires hissing through a spray of water. His heart hammered. One more second, and perhaps it would have been over. He gasped for air. Hands clenched on the wheel, shaking as if pulled back from death's mouth. Daniel pulled over and sat, panting. His throat tightened. The rain kept falling, each heavy drop on the hood seeming to remind him he had gone too far, traded everything for a filthy illusion. He bowed his head onto the wheel, tears mixed with sweat and rain. Veronica's sweet words echoed in his mind like taunting laughter. From now on, you are mine. You're different. You're special. Those words now struck hollow and cruel. He felt ashamed. He wanted to vomit at himself. He sat in the cold car all night. The rain gradually eased into a terrifying silence. He could not sleep, only stared at the family photo, eyes rimmed red. A decision slowly formed inside him. There was no turning back. He whispered to himself, I must stop. I must cut it off now. If I don't, I will lose everything. Emily, Anna, Mom, everything. Before dawn, Daniel's phone vibrated relentlessly. Messages from Veronica filled the screen. Are you ready to head to work? This morning the promotion is signed. This is your career turning point. Don't disappoint me. He stared at the screen. His eyes were bloodshot. His breath steadied. Then he held his finger down and swiped. Delete. No hesitation. In that moment, Daniel knew all the false lights, money, title, desire, had collapsed. But from those ashes came one chance, if he had the courage to come back. That morning the house was so quiet you could hear the ticking of the clock. I was making tea when I heard the door open. Daniel walked in. His shirt was wrinkled, tie loosened, eyes ringed with dark circles. In his hand, he still clutched a small photo of Emily holding Anna. Daniel, I called softly. Where have you been all night? He collapsed into a chair, covering his face with both hands. After a long pause, his voice came out hoarse. Mom, I quit my job. I handed in my resignation this morning. It's all over. I stared at him in shock. Quit? Daniel, what have you done? Isn't this the career you've pursued for years? Mom, I couldn't take it anymore. Veronica, she lost her mind, said she would destroy my career. But you know what? I'm not afraid anymore. I only feel relieved. I looked at my son. For the first time in months, his eyes no longer held the light of ambition, but the emptiness of someone broken, like a child lost and searching for the way home. That afternoon, Daniel asked me to call Emily into the living room. I knew this moment would be a storm, and Emily walked in, still holding Anna in her arms. When she saw Daniel kneel before her, she gasped, Emily, Daniel, what are you doing? Daniel's voice trembling. Emily, I betrayed you. I betrayed you and our child. The room fell into a deathly silence. Emily stood frozen, lips quivering but no sound coming out. Tears burst forth after only seconds. Emily, no, that's not possible. What are you saying? Daniel, don't joke with me like that. Daniel bowing his head, voice choked. I'm not joking. I was tempted by power, money, desire. They blinded me. I went too far, Emily. But now, I have nothing left but the truth. I don't deserve you. I don't deserve our child. But please give me a chance to make it right. Emily broke down, sobbing. She set Anna in the crib, then pounded weakly on her husband's chest through tears. Why? Why you, of all people? I trusted you. Do you know how much I trusted you? Daniel not resisting, tears streaming down his face. I know, and that's why I hate myself. I hurt you more than anyone else ever could. But Emily, I promise, from now on, I'll live only to atone. Emily covered her face, trembling, turning away. I knew if I let things unravel in that moment, all three of them would collapse. I took a deep breath. then spoke firmly. Margaret, enough. Both of you, listen to me. Emily lifted her tearful eyes. Daniel remained on his knees, like a criminal awaiting judgment. I looked straight at my son. Margaret, Daniel, if you want this family back, it won't be with words, but with actions. I'm setting conditions. If you truly repent, you'll follow them. If not, leave this house. The room went silent. Emily stopped crying, waiting intently. I raised my fingers, stating clearly, cut off all contact with Veronica, not just words. You'll write a firm email, black and white, and Emily and I will read it. You must attend marriage and personal counseling. You let yourself spiral. Now you must relearn how to be a husband and a father. Everything must be transparent. Finances, phone, schedule. Emily has the right to know. You will share household responsibilities, caring for the child, chores, every small task. This family will no longer be Emily's burden alone. Daniel nodded again and again, tears streaking down his cheeks. Daniel, yes, I promise. I'll do everything. Just please, don't abandon me. Emily clasped her hands tightly but said nothing. I knew she couldn't forgive just yet. In the days that followed, Daniel started over. He left the company under the scornful eyes of his colleagues. He accepted a humbler job with lower pay at a smaller position. One evening, Daniel sat beside me, voice breaking. Daniel, Mom, from now on I'll take the bus to work. My old friends look at me like a failure. They laugh behind my back. Margaret placing my hand on his shoulder. Let them laugh. You don't need their approval. The only thing that matters is that Emily and Anna see a Daniel who is genuine, not false. And that's enough. Daniel bowed his head, tears dripping onto the back of his hand. I knew the road ahead would not be easy, but at least it had begun. From that day, Daniel accepted starting from zero, truly from nothing. He left early for work, returned late, endured judgmental stares. But in his eyes, for the first time in so long, I saw a true light, the determination to come back to his family. I have lived more than half a lifetime and witnessed many families collapse because of betrayal. But when it was my own son who betrayed, and my daughter-in-law who carried the pain, I finally understood the crushing weight of those two words: trust. In the first days after Daniel confessed everything, the air in our home felt wrapped in a heavy fog. Emily lived as if on the other side of a wall. She still did the chores, still cared for Anna, still greeted politely. But the light she once had for Daniel was gone. Daniel, my son, was completely different too. Quiet, withdrawn, he accepted the distance Emily put between them. No more surprise hugs, no more kitchen jokes, only silence. I thought Emily might leave, but she stayed. Not because of forgiveness, but because of Anna, the little girl who knew nothing but pure laughter. One night, sitting with Emily on the porch, she whispered, voice trembling, "Mom, I don't know if I have the strength." He stabbed my heart to deep. I know, Emily, you don't need to forgive right away. The important thing is to listen to yourself. Do you still have any love left for Daniel? Emily stayed silent for a long time, then said, I'm not sure, but I want Anna to have her father. Those words were like a small anchor, keeping the family from drifting too far away. Daniel changed completely. I no longer saw him sit for hours behind a laptop with arrogance. Instead, Every morning he rose early to make breakfast, sometimes just fried eggs, toast, or a hot cup of coffee for Emily in the evenings. Daniel spent time with Anna, changing diapers, mixing milk, telling bedtime stories. Small tasks, but the very ones Emily noticed most. Once, I saw Emily standing at the bedroom door, watching Daniel cradle Anna to sleep. She didn't step in, only quietly wiped away a tear. I knew her heart was still wounded, but the cracks were slowly, gently healing. I hoped so. I believed so. We agreed Daniel and Emily should attend marriage counseling. I went along to watch Anna. When they came out, both their eyes were red. That evening, Daniel told me what happened at the first session. The counselor asked, "Before we talk about mistakes, tell me what you still appreciate about each other." Daniel looked at Emily for a long time, then said, "I appreciate your patience and strength. Even though I betrayed you, you stayed, cared for our child, and kept this home standing." Emily was silent, then whispered, "I appreciate that you are still a good father. Whatever happens between us, I've never seen you neglect Anna." In that moment, both broke down crying. The counselor said only one sentence: "Trust never returns as it was, but you can build a new shape for it, different, but still beautiful enough to hold on to." Emily did not rush to forgive. She tested Daniel in practical ways. One week, she gave him full control of the finances. If Daniel had once hidden things, now every bill, every cent spent, he photographed and sent to Emily. Sometimes Emily asked hard questions. "If Veronica calls again, what will you do?" Daniel handed her his phone. "See for yourself. I've cut her off completely. Every contact deleted or blocked. I have nothing left to hide from you or Anna." Emily read, said nothing, but her eyes carried a faint glimmer of trust. One night, Anna had a high fever. Daniel carried her all night, pacing, laying warm cloths on her forehead, whispering lullabies. Emily stood at the doorway, the yellow light shining on her husband's tired but determined face. The next morning, she quietly told me, "Mom, I think he really has changed." I held her hand and replied, "Yes, forgiveness isn't erasing the past. It's opening the door to a future." After 6 months of persistence, one quiet evening, Emily sat beside Daniel. She softly said, "Let's try again, but slowly, slow and steady." Daniel looked at his wife, tears falling. He held Emily's hand, saying nothing more, but his eyes were filled with gratitude. I sat in the corner of the room, smiling quietly. I knew this family had walked through the abyss and had begun the climb back into the light. After half a year of storms, our family may never be the same as before, but at least they now sit side by side, hold hands, and share one simple vow: let's try again. A year has passed since my family was shaken by temptation and betrayal. Looking back, I see it all like a great storm, fierce, destructive, but eventually passing, leaving behind a clearer sky. And beneath that sky, we, those who once thought we had lost one another, found our home again. The big house in the city center has been sold. Now we live in a smaller home on the outskirts. Outsiders may think we have fallen behind, but to me, it is a new beginning. The house is smaller, yes, but it has a garden out back, where Daniel built a wooden swing for Anna. Every afternoon, her laughter fills the yard, a sound so pure it soothes every wound in our hearts. I often stand on the porch, teacup in hand, breathing in the scent of cinnamon drifting from the kitchen. Emily, my daughter-in-law, bakes there. Her hands, once trembling and tear-stained, are now steady and skillful again. That day, for the first time in many months, I heard Emily's genuine laughter. I looked over at Daniel and saw him laugh with her, a smile free of lies, free of burdens. Daniel, my son, has changed. He is no longer the man chasing reports, numbers, and after-hours meetings with Veronica. After leaving the company, Daniel started over from zero. He took a more modest job with lower pay, but greater peace. I've seen him learn to say no, something he never did before. No to late-night invitations. No to opportunities bought at the cost of his family. No to the empty admiration of others. Daniel also joined a support group for men struggling to balance work and family. One evening he sat beside me, sighed, and said, "Mom, I've realized success means nothing if it costs me my family. If I had lost Emily and Anna back then, I would have had nothing left." I only nodded. Sometimes the most painful lessons are the ones etched deepest. And as for Veronica, the woman who once nearly destroyed our family, one day I saw Daniel sitting quietly in the living room, eyes fixed on his laptop screen. The headline read, "Branch Director Veronica Hayes reassigned after internal scandal." I waited to see how Daniel would react. He said nothing, no gloating, no bitterness. He simply closed the screen, then walked over to hold Anna in his arms. I breathed in relief. That was the moment I knew my son had truly grown. That evening, we gathered around the dinner table. I told Anna the story of Johnny Appleseed, the man who traveled across America planting apple seeds, never asking for anything in return, only trusting that one day the seeds would bloom and bear fruit for others. Anna's eyes widened in wonder, her little mouth never stopping its smile. Under the table, Emily quietly squeezed Daniel's hand. No one spoke, but I knew what that hand was saying. We were lost, but we found each other again. I looked at my son, once my pride, then my disappointment, now proving his growth. I looked at my daughter-in-law, the woman who endured such pain, yet chose to stay and patiently mend what was broken. I looked at my granddaughter, the hope, the bond holding us all together, and I said softly, not just to my family, but to anyone who might hear this story, temptation may lead us astray, but truth, responsibility, and steadfast love are the way home. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it opens the future. That night, Daniel hung a new family photo on the wall, Emily resting her head on his shoulder, Anna running ahead with joy, and me standing behind them, smiling gently. I walked to the window and closed it softly. Outside, night had fallen. Inside, the house was filled with the sound of a child's laughter, the sweet scent of cinnamon cake, and the warmth of love. A home, once broken, but rebuilt. And this time, I believe it will stand stronger than ever.
My dear friends, if this story has touched your heart, I invite you to leave a comment and share your thoughts or your own experiences. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue to listen, to tell, and to live through stories together, stories that may be yours, or perhaps someone you once knew.